My name is Nicole. I'm an educator for Glassbox, and today I'm doing a classic haircut. So I'm going to begin by dampening the hair with a little bit of water. This will help keep my sections very clean and my tension very tight. Making sure to be consistent, getting all areas of the head. Grab all the excess moisture away from Nathan's face, just so that it doesn't irritate the client. I'm going to begin by taking my first section just above the parietal ridge and combing the hair downwards, separating the two panels away from each other, being the side and the top. With shorter length, it may be a bit trickier to keep your sections very clean. So always remember to add water when it begins to get a little too tricky. Now the top section is obviously too short for a clip. So that's why I use a lot of moisture to keep the hair in place. I'm going to begin by using a technique called cross graduation on the back and sides because we're allowing the hair to be styled backwards. So starting with a diagonal section, holding my comb in the center to gain control, scooping just underneath the parting, keeping the second knuckle from my second finger, being the middle finger, close to the head, and taking my first guideline. Always making sure that the two panels are separate. So I do get a little bit of hair coming from the top, entering the sides. So make sure you do not cut that and maintain control by pushing it away. Position of the client's head is also important, so you can grab the right amount of tension and the right angle. We're almost wrapping up side A. And the way we're going to approach this haircut is going to be very systematic. So now that we've completed side A, we're gonna go to side B. Now this is the side that Nathan parts his hair on. So we're probably gonna have to be more meticulous about the parting when we begin to slice through. So we're gonna comb all this hair forward. And now remembering that whenever you take a section or a parting, always comb the hair in the direction you're about to slice. It makes it way easier and you actually begin to see the parting naturally as opposed to trying to putting a bunch of effort into place in the parting. Combing that nice and neat. Tilting his head over to the side. Being very attentive of these little baby hairs towards the front of his hairline, as you do want to grab them as it does complete the look. So I'm actually just placing my middle finger under my first guide. And I'm just gonna throw it over my finger like that and take my first cut. In my next section. Using that subsection I just cut as my guide. I'm just cutting right above it. Now if I lose my guide, I can easily take one blade and just flip this over, and I could see it just peeking through underneath. It's very important to always have your eye on the guide as you don't want to get lost into the haircut. Start cutting bits that you actually can't really see. Now Nathan has a little bit of product in his hair, which I actually prefer. A lot of people don't like to cut with product in their hair because it makes it a little bit slippery. But I actually kind of like it as it gives me a little bit of grip. And actually places the hair in place so I can actually start to see the look that I'm trying to achieve. So now as I come to the back, I'm just going to separate the crown from the top so I can connect panels A and B. Starting at the top of this corner, slicing through. I've just cut this piece, I'm just making sure it's accurate, combing the rest down. Now these little hairs might not make it. As I mentioned, Nathan's hair is quite short at the moment. So we're just grabbing any excess hair that we see surpassing the guide. And same thing over here. Now, if the crown was a little bit longer, I would probably start to elevate it at this point so I could remove some of the weight. That's not the case with Nathan today. So at this point, I'm concluding the crown. I'm running out of hair, so that tells me that panels A and B are connected. So I'm actually gonna go in, slice through, and soften the point where A and B meet, because it actually creates a corner just above the occipital. So we're going to slice through, remembering to elevate exactly where I cut it diagonally. Bring it straight out and just clean up any hairs that may create some unnecessary weight. And there's nothing to cut at that last piece. So now that we've gone and done the back and sides, I really don't want to do anything to the top. I actually really like it. Nathan also has plans to grow out his hair, but I'm still going to go through and clean it up. Since he is here for a haircut, we still want to make the client feel that I'm actually going through his haircut thoroughly. So I'm gonna go through, take my first section. Now to create my first guide through the top of the head, I'm using Nathan's nose to determine the thickness of my first guide. That will also help me keep my section in the center. Starting in the back, using the longest piece of my crown as a guide for the top, I'm just gonna bring that up along with that middle section and blend it on through. Using a square layer technique, I'm just trimming the ends, almost just giving it a dusting. By trimming these little hairs at the end, will actually make the hair look fuller. Because of the more blunt cutting line. Always making sure that you're not over directing, coming up straight from the head. Always making sure your sections are clean. Checking for your guide. Just wrapping up the right side of the top of the head. With little to no hair, making it really just making ends meet. Moving on to the left side of the top of the head. Remembering that my first guide was in the center, going just beside the center, taking another subsection. I'm going to actually mark my guide so I know where I began by just creating a slice without really parting it. Because my sections are so clean and tidy, I can actually see the guidelines straight through the hair. And that's basically what you should be looking for. Really be cautious of that over direction. Now we're approaching the area where Nathan parts his hair. So we're just gonna part that straight away, so we know exactly where we stand in terms of the separation between the top and the sides. So now that I've actually took out the parting, I now can see that I have only this much to cut for the top, and that concludes the top area. So I'm just gonna grab that at 90 degrees one more time, straight up from the head, and just taking off any excess bits. Perfect. So, scissor work is pretty much finished. All that's left to do is to cross-check. Now, we can cross-check this by going the opposite way. Because we came in vertically, we're gonna come out horizontally. So starting back here, just bringing up 90 degrees, making sure all ends meet. Perfect. And now blow dry. So in my hands I have a paste called L'Oreal Density Material. It's a really malleable paste, easy for spreading, and because Nathan's got really short hair, it's gonna make sure that I maintain a smooth, clean look. So I'm gonna start by applying in the back. Wherever you put the most product first is gonna be the heavier and the greasier area. So always make sure that that's in the back of the head and not towards the sides. Especially with skin and face, sensitive face, you don't wanna put too much product around them. It makes people break out. So you just wanna make sure you spread it through the hair. Even though you're going to the back and sides and you're about to cut it off, no matter what you're doing, you still wanna get paste throughout the head. It helps create a consistent look. And always make sure for a best blow dry. So with Nathan's hair, we don't really need to remove any moisture. The hair is really short. So I'm just gonna go straight away to smoothing it out. Using medium heat. Remembering that I did diagonal sections, meaning the hair must be styled back. Always making sure the brush and the blow dryer are a team. You always keep them together, keeping your tension tight and consistently following your brush. Don't be too concerned about nailing any parts in with the blow dryer. That is not something that air will do. Air is not going to keep things meticulous. It's just going to blow hair all over the place. So what you want to do is just focus on blow drying and then worry about sectioning at the end. Pointing my nozzle upwards to give myself some height. And just as a pro tip on partings, with classic haircuts, you always want to almost like angle the blow dryer just above the parting, like so, and blow dry directly over it if you have a stubborn parting that tends to stick up. So now before I start my clipper work, I'm gonna go in and section the hair the way I want it to be styled. It always helps if you can envision the look before you start using your clippers. When I assessed Nathan's hair, I actually was inspired by Steve McQueen. I really like the style of the 60s, and I think that really suits Nathan's look. Nathan also really favors that sort of style. So looking back at the 60s, there wasn't really any hard fades, not much skin showing, unless of course you're in the military. So we're gonna keep things really clean and almost classic, and just maybe just add a little bit of a modern touch by creating a little bit of a taper towards the bottom. Now I'm not gonna approach this with skin, as I think it would wash Nathan out too much. Complexion is a big key in determining how short you should go with your fades. So I'm actually gonna go in with the number 3 and then see if I feel like maybe it could go to a 2, but I'm mostly gonna use a 3 and then taper. But the taper is, the shortest length is probably gonna be like a 0 or a 0.5. So starting with my number 3, closed clipper, slap that on, combing just the edges of where I've previously cut my shape downwards, just about where the parietal ridge begins. You can actually see the weight line. So I'm literally just trying to scoop right beneath it. Constantly combing as I go along. Definitely making sure that I don't surpass that ledge, because I actually think it accentuates Nathan's look. So I'm just flicking right off the parietal, and there's your side A. Moving on to side B, I'm not going to cut the back yet. I'm just gonna work on the sides. It's very important to be systematic, okay? You always wanna make sure that both sides are equal. I've created a nice bevel. Now I'm just gonna put Nathan's ear down and just scoop out all these little hairs. And I'm actually happy with a number 3. I don't think I'm gonna go to a number 2. Always make sure you start with longer clipper settings, especially when you're not sure. Moving on to the back, just connecting A to B. Keeping in mind the occipitals right about here, as you don't want to surpass that point. And as we work systematic with the sides, we're also working systematic with the back as well, splitting them into 2 quadrants. I think that's a wonderful shape. Super clean. And always making sure you tilt your client's head and accommodate yourself ergonomically. Always take care of your body. Okay, so now that we've done number 3, I'm going to begin to start my taper. So now before I start my fade, I really think it's important that we clean Nathan up. All this shouldn't be happening, okay? We can't have clients full of hair, so make sure you're constantly keeping them clean. I just take a blow dryer with cool air, remove the heat, it's too hot for people, and using a little bit of a brush to remove any bits that may be on his face. Tilting Nathan's head to the side, I'm going to start with my number 2, closed, and it's very important to know the difference between a magic clip and something that's more magnetic, okay? A rotary is a lighter clipper, and it's easier for blending. It has amazing blending capabilities, where heavier clippers like a Senior or a 1919 may have more of a magnetic approach and more better for removing bulk. So just scooping into my number 3, going 2.5, just to feather out and blend that weight. We're just doing the sideburns and the nape area, so we can create a little bit of tightness towards the bottom. And this will help with how the hair grows out. When you have interesting necklines like this, where the growth pattern is kind of like low and super swirly, we want to get rid of that, because when it grows back, it'll actually stay cleaner and have more longevity. And moving on to the last sideburn, scooping that out. All right, now I'm going to grab my number 1. Now I'm going to start with my number 1 open, so that I could blend into my number 2, which creates a 1.5. So I'm using what's called ascending graduation, 0.5, 0, a little bit of a number 1. Same thing on this side. 1.5 into my 2. 1. 0.5. 0. I'm just going back with my number 1 just to clean that up. Now the last bit of tapering, the nape area, always ensuring the client is facing downwards. Beginning with my 1.5, flicking into my number 2, staying right below the occipital. Again, using descending graduation, going in with my number 1. 0.5. Which is no guard, but an open blade. 0, closed. Again, no guard. Just beneath my 0.5. Going back in with my number 1 just to blend in that heavy weight line between my 0.5 and number 1. And then flicking to 1.5 again, just to clean up my blend. Hairlines like these are pretty tricky, so make sure you take your time and almost do like a feathery motion as opposed to a hard press against the head, as you'll create more lines and more work for yourself. Very nice. So we're gonna go in and start to line up Nathan. Again, tilting his head to the side. So I can see that his hairline is already starting to form. So I can see a curvature by his sideburn and around the ears. So we're not really gonna try to push back too much. We're merely trying to accentuate. So I'm gonna start by combing these little hairs down, trimming them so that that area is not too dark. And start to eyeball my shape around his haircut. This is actually my favorite part of the haircut because this is when you start to see the haircut come to life. Always maintaining control, taking my time, not really digging against the skin, keeping a very light touch. When you get areas like this that are quite low to the ear, I have a little trick where I place my thumb over the client's ear and I try to push my comb down and almost do the same thing I did to his sideburn, just remove some of the excess hair that I might have not grabbed with my clipper. Same thing back here. It's all the little details that count. Now, when creating this line just behind the ear, I almost do an approach where I create these little lines and then connect them all together. Because it helps me visualize where my line should be before committing to it. Moving on to side B. Same rules apply. Perfect. Pushing his head down and just cleaning up these little hairs. Being mindful of any abrasions on the skin, because you want to go around those. So now I'm going to go in with some scissor work to remove some of the weight sitting on the parietal ridge. So again, tilting Nathan's head, coming up just beneath this weight, and just removing some of the bulk. Again, systematic approach. Go back to the other side. Do the same thing. There really isn't much to scissor over comb, as this haircut pretty much blended on its own. There wasn't too much length that I had to remove, so the number 3 blended in nicely with my graduation. Nice. Once you're satisfied with the cut, start combing through and making sure everything starts to add up. Okay, to recap this haircut, we did a classic square layer on top, round grad on the back and sides with a little bit of a taper, using a number 3 predominantly through the back and sides, blending down to a 0,